Welcome to Contemporary Retirement. Contemporary Retirement is a public interest program focused on the retirement community. Every program has segments on legal, financial, and health issues affecting the retirement community. Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a major grant from the Family Heritage Trust Company.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored by Family Heritage Trust Company. The Family Heritage Trust Company is an independent bank chartered trust company established by local professionals to provide fiduciary services including fee-based investment advice, trust services, retirement planning, and tax planning. The Family Heritage Trust Company is committed to client service in our communities. For more information, call the Family Heritage Trust Company at 301-631-5900.
Contemporary Retirement is sponsored in part by a grant from R. Thomas Murphy & Associates, P.C. R. Thomas Murphy & Associates is one of Franklin County's leading law firms, emphasizing estate, trust, elder law, and medical assistance planning.
Welcome to the Is It Legal feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various legal issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Tom Murphy from the R. Thomas Murphy Law Firm with offices in Waynesboro, Chambersburg, and McConnellsburg. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Good morning.
Tom, when we have families come into our office and they're confronted with the fact that one spouse is developing some obvious characteristics that would suggest long-term care, we have people every day coming in and saying, should I get a divorce in order to avoid this problem?
Right, and you'll hear that, and the next question out of my mouth is, do you really want to get a divorce? First and foremost, but secondly, we go through the process to explain to them that that's probably the least desirable outcome because of all the negative results of divorce in the long-term care world.
Well, you have a spouse who's incapacitated, and so you go to file for divorce. The court is going to appoint a lawyer for that person to represent them in the divorce.
Right, exactly. And so that means it's going to be potentially a battle. It's not going to be this, jovial, let's agree to disinherit you kind of thing. It's going to be tough.
And what you're going to find is that almost inevitably there's going to be a requirement of an equitable split of those assets, most simply 50-50.
That's exactly right. I mean, they're not going to just, leave one spouse impoverished just because they may need long-term care. So that's, at odds of what can be done.
All right, so let's talk about a married couple case here. You get a divorce, they each own half of the house, which then means the spouse in the nursing home, that half can be used to pay their nursing home bill.
Well, exactly. It's not their, community spouse's property, it's their asset, and so it's at risk.
Now, a married couple, is their personal residence at risk to pay the nursing home bill?
Not at all, and we will immediately transfer it over to the healthy spouse, no problem whatsoever, even after a nursing home admission.
Automatically protected in all 50 states.
Automatically protected.
But I heard there's liens against houses.
Not if you do it right, and if you move it to the healthy spouse, there are no liens, there are no problems with that.
All right, so you have several $100,000 worth of financial resources. If you get a divorce, they're going to be required as a part of that divorce action to split up those assets, which then means the institutionalized spouse's assets are now available to pay the nursing home. How about if they stay married?
If they stay married, we move them to the healthy spouse, and then we go through a process of protecting them. And we start out with most of them being protected anyway.
Now, the one thing that cannot be protected is, let's say it's the husband, his pension is at risk in a married couple case or in a single person case, but that's not improved or made worse by getting a divorce.
Well, exactly. So if you're divorced, well, maybe there's some alimony, maybe there's some whatever, but the reality
Maryland isn't recognizing an alimony payment or child support
there's
payments.
a kick there. But in a Pennsylvania spousal situation, that community spousal home needs certain levels of income. So
in Maryland as well, you could get a piece of that income from the spouse, but you could not get a piece of that income from a divorced spouse.
Well, exactly. So that's a huge discrepancy. And so, in the last situation I sat down with where a wife was looking to get a divorce because she was afraid of losing everything, she would have been in a terrible situation. She would have got half of the money she was entitled to from her spouse's income if she had gotten divorced.
Well, and then we have another problem is that many times they're not really divorced. The fact is they don't want to get a divorce, they're not really divorced, and we have people making representations to the court that they would have to make that are really not right.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot have some collusion going on without jeopardizing some things with the judge, and you can't just go down that road unless you're truly getting divorced.
All right, so then we get that divorce. We insist on it because somebody told it was a good idea. We basically have to fix this after the fact. But what you have there is now you have an institutionalized spouse who dies not having spent all of the money, and now where do they give it? They give it to their real spouse.
Yeah, and now in Pennsylvania, you're into a 15% inheritance tax because you are no longer married. And you know, it's
What's the inheritance tax between husband and wife who are married?
0.
Now, how much is that again?
15% to non-spouses. So it can be pretty salty.
Maryland, it's 10%.
Wow, it's still
So
bad.
what you once again is you've taken assets which could have automatically been protected, could have been automatically transferred to the healthy spouse with no inheritance tax. You've now subjected yourself to inheritance taxes as well.
Right, and then if you are divorced and you are giving stuff to that ex-spouse, now you're creating penalties, whereas when you were married, you didn't have any penalties.
Exactly that case in our office a few years ago where the institutionalized spouse had all the income. So as the spouse who was no longer the spouse was taking money out of the account, it was a gift, and it caused a negative impact for medical assistance planning, whereas if they'd been married, it'd been no problem at all.
Exactly. No penalties on spousal transfers, and so it's easy and straightforward, and you don't need to go through something that's usually gut-wrenching to start with.
And basically in almost all family situations, if you don't have a prenup, which virtually no one has that prenuptial agreement, where there might be a little bit of protection, really not a lot, but maybe a little bit, it's almost always, it just makes no sense whatsoever to get a divorce.
Absolutely, and even with prenups in Pennsylvania, they're just not honoring it. So you've got to be careful with those types of situations.
Same in Maryland, but
Yeah.
there might be a little bit of protection.
Little protection, but yeah, every case a little different.
Tom, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on our program.
You're welcome.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Few things in life are as important as family. Leave your insurance worries to us. Write Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
Every life that meets its end leaves a heart for love to mend. Sister, brother, family, friends are left to carry on. When the loss seems more than you can bear, it's nice to know that we'll be there at Douglas A. Fiery Funeral Home. We care.
Call Ed Lowe to help put your mind at ease.
Welcome to the special guest feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various issues which are of importance to the retirement community. With me today is Matthew Hurley from Hurley Auctions. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
You know, Matt, when we're dealing with families, and oftentimes when families are either downsizing or there's moving to, a long-term care facility or perhaps passing, in our spread to the wind family situations, oftentimes children are coming in and looking at a parent's house, or perhaps the spouse is looking at moving, and they're just overwhelmed by the amount of materials that they have.
That's right. It can be very overwhelming for someone who doesn't deal with this on a regular basis. We hear that all the time.
And so as they look at that stuff, they kind of start, first of all, trying to figure out what has value and what doesn't have value.
Yeah, they do. They panic. What do I do? What do I keep? What do I throw away? And oftentimes the problem is they throw away what was the best item in the house.
In fact, you have a hard and fast rule, which is?
It is, call us first. Don't throw anything away.
Because some of the stuff that they may not realize has value does have value, and some of the stuff that people historically think is very valuable is not so valuable today.
That's exactly right.
I know they march you into the china cabinet and the crystal cabinet, and many times it doesn't have as much value as you might think.
The items we find in the basement and attic are normally the most valuable.
All right, and so we've done some shows showing, like, for instance, picture albums, those sorts of things, and people would think, it's not my family. Why would somebody want to buy an album that's not their family?
That's right. That's right. Many things today that are collectible are for decorating. And so even though it's not your family, someone will use that to decorate their home, and so they become very popular.
All right, well, we're going to have Director Greg pull up some pictures here so that we can take a look here. Now, this looks like this is pretty cluttered here.
This isn't too bad, but this is what we run into when we go into the house. people were living there. They have things throughout the house. Sometimes as they were getting older, they couldn't take care of things like they like. And so we come into quite a mess. But that's what it looks like when we're done. And so we send in a team and they reorganize, they clean, so that when we take our pictures for the auction, this is what they'll see.
All right, so now this would sort of show the overall room, how that item might fit for the auction, and then you would have individual pictures of each
That's
item.
right, individual pictures of each auction. This was actually a bedroom. It doesn't look like it, but that was a bedroom when we started.
So a child looking at that would just go, oh my gosh.
Where do you start? Where do I
Right.
start? What do I do?
And so your people would come in and help them identify those items, which are...
That's right. What's most valuable, and that's what it looks like when we're finished.
And then once again, in the auction, you would have pictures of those individual
Each
items.
item would be photographed.
All right, now if somebody does auction on this, would they have an opportunity to inspect these properties?
They would. They would. They can come, they can inspect and see what we have.
So what do we have here?
This is one that we actually moved to our auction facility. The people couldn't have it at their home. They didn't want to have it there. And so we moved it to our auction facility. You can see that everything's displayed nicely. Everything has a sticker identified. This came out of a storage unit. Now you can imagine what it looked like in a storage unit.
Right.
But when we were finished, it looked just like someone's home, or actually looks like an antique market.
All right, so let's talk about how this process works. So if a family is looking at a house and it's filled to the gills, 50, 60 years worth of accumulation, what happens? What do they do?
They give us a call. We'll set an appointment to come out and do an on-site evaluation. We'll go in, we'll look at what they have, make recommendations, what would work best, what they might like us to do, what they need. That's the first thing we do is, what do you need? Where can we take the weight off? Where can we help? We're transition specialists. We help them transition through that period.
All right, so obviously, personal photographs and so forth, the family needs to divide those up and take them home with them.
Get out those personal things, paperwork, things that are important to you that you want to keep, things that you might need to help with future paperwork. Get those things out.
All right, and then the next group of stuff they look at is obviously you want to get those valuables.
Right, right. What's most valuable? And so we'll go through the entire house, every cupboard, every drawer, under the couch. Where can we find those valuable items? And we'll help identify those and find what's most valuable.
And because this is your full-time job, you have a very good idea of those items which are likely to bring something versus items that are not likely to produce any value.
That's right. And we have several teams that go into a home, and each one has a team leader that has done this for years. And they specialize in antiques and collectibles, and they know what to look for.
All right, and so you identify those valuable items, and we've shown how it might be staged in the home as a part of the sale, or if in the case the home isn't appropriate for it or they're unwilling to have them there, then you would take them to your facility.
That's right. We take them to our facility, everything is photographed, and sometimes people say, let us clean it, and I say, don't clean it. Sometimes it sells better with that dirt on it.
All right, and then you would post it up onto your website.
It goes on our website. People can view it there, and they bid right online from their home.
All right, and then the next group of stuff is probably the stuff that should go to Goodwill.
Yeah, there will be some things that just won't sell, but what's changed is many things that wouldn't sell before now sell, because online we have a lot more buyers and different buyers.
And then lastly, whatever's left, it's okay to throw it away.
At the end of the day, we're going to help get rid of what's left. We'll make the arrangements to have it removed, whatever has to happen.
And the interesting thing as a part of your service is people don't realize a home that's not insured for 6 months and vacant, you're going to probably lose your homeowner's insurance, and you could lose it retroactive even though you've paid the premium. So these people sitting on these houses unable to figure it out need to understand there's risk associated with that.
And we can do this very quickly. From first contact to the end of the auction, we can do it in 30 days or less.
Matt, as always, thanks for taking time
Great
to
to be
appear on
here.
our program.
Thanks.
More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
Tranquility at Fredericktown Assisted Living and Memory Care provides a warm, home-like atmosphere that promotes daily life enrichment. At Tranquility, our medical director is a geriatric physician. Our professionals support and understand the various stages associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. We have on-site physical, occupational, and speech therapists, as well as around-the-clock licensed nurses. For more information, give Tranquility at Fredericktown a call today, because everyone deserves great care. Let us do the caregiving so you and your loved one can embrace life again.
Come on, Dad, let's go! We're gonna be late! Hurry!
Just one more bid on HurleyAuctions.com. If you haven't visited HurleyAuctions.com, you don't know what you're missing. Whether you're buying or selling, antique cars, tractors, boats, or real estate, you can do it all at HurleyAuctions.com.
Get to know Dr. Carrie Hesley at Diagnostic Imaging Services.
What I find most rewarding is caring for women through our Women's Imaging Center. We have a caring staff that will ease patients through an ultrasound, bone densitometry, breast biopsy, or mammogram. Our health team is sensitive to emotions involved in women's imaging and understands that every woman is at risk for breast cancer. Providing the community with a center that is so dedicated to breast health and the imaging needs of women is something special.
DIS Women's Imaging Center, providing women with progressive care.
Welcome to Contemporary Health Scene. Contemporary Health Scene focuses on the health issues affecting the retirement community. With me today is Art Geyer, who's the facilitator for the Hagerstown Parkinson's Support Group. Welcome to the show, Art.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, first of all, we call it the Hagerstown Support Group, but in reality, there's a quad state. Almost all of the counties are having support groups.
Yes, down into Virginia, West Virginia, up into Pennsylvania, all of the western states have support groups of some kind.
Now, you've been involved in Hagerstown's for some time. Tell us a little bit about your history there.
Well, my wife has Parkinson's, and she found this group in the newspaper probably 8 years ago, and we started going to the group, and when the leader left at that time, they asked me to take over. That was in April of 2011, and I've been running the show since with a board of that I like to call my board.
Well, of course, it's a nice group because you do meet and, you know, you have some socialization,
Right.
You try to do some education, and also talk to people about how to manage this process.
That's right, and I'm a big believer in the socialization aspect because it gets people out of their homes, out of their routine, and into doing something that they can enjoy and not be concerned that they're going to stand out because of their affliction.
All right, so now where do you routinely meet?
At the Western Sizzling Restaurant in Hagerstown.
So you have a separate room, so you know you can sort of enjoy each other's company.
Yes.
and not have to worry about, and as you say, standing out.
Right, exactly.
Now, you know, one of the challenges, of course, on the medical side, you know, you go and you see your doctor, whether it be every month or every 3 months or something like that. You're talking about medical treatment, but it really doesn't provide you with all of the other issues that go with living with this disease.
That's very true. There are lots of aspects of making your life livable that the doctor himself doesn't provide. There's therapies, there's the socialization, and just keeping your mind active.
And so it allows people to get together and talk about what's going on, you know, learn more about some of the options that are out there.
Exactly. And we're lucky this year there are 2 new releases of treatment that have been released by the FDA. One is Duodopa. It's a fusion pump that pumps carbidopa, levodopa into the small intestines continuously for 16 hours. It evens out the on and off periods. The other one has the same impact. It is a extended release pill that's an upgrade from the previous one.
And one of the things about Parkinson's is that it has typically a fairly lengthy period of time that the person suffers from it, but oftentimes in the early parts of that disease, you look as normal as anybody else.
Absolutely. In fact, people will not really recognize if they've had Parkinson's until they're told they've had it, and then they'll go back and say, oh yeah, I had that symptom 5 years ago. And so, yeah, it comes on very, very slowly. In fact, 70% of the neurons in the brain that produce dopamine have to be gone before you start to show symptoms.
All right, and then of course you have to deal with the fact that you have to caregivers as well, and so part of your programming is to help caregivers
Yes, sir.
more effectively manage the care program.
Right, and we try to target them in some of our educational aspects, but we also have a caregivers breakfast once a month that they get together and can interact with their current problems.
And give some tips and so forth
Exactly.
on how to manage this process.
Right, right. It's become a pretty popular thing, although we don't have a large crowd. They enjoy meeting, and out of that group, I sort of formed a board that helps me manage the organization.
All right, and so last time I was out there speaking, I had 40, 50 people out there, so you know it's a nice socialization event as well.
Yeah, we've been averaging 50. We had 64 at one of our recent meetings.
And so people also need to understand it's part of having fun as well. You know, it's
Yes.
not just about sitting there and grinding on the disease.
Exactly. We do an educational aspect, a short business aspect, and then we have lunch, and the people can stay or not stay, and they can stay as long as they want and enjoy each other's company. And recently we had one of our picnics, and there'll be another one coming up later in the year.
So tell how a person can get more involved and find out more about your organization.
Well, the easiest thing would be to, if you have access to email, would be to email me at the number 4, parkinsons@gmail.com. It's pretty short and easy to remember.
Thank you for taking time to appear on our program. More from Contemporary Retirement after these messages.
People don't realize it takes a lot to care for a family member in your home. John's dad was very headstrong, so I think that was a lot for him to get over and try to come to terms with that he had terminal illness. I would recommend everybody to get hospice involved at the get-go. When you first learn about it, get it set up. It's going to make it, I mean, it's terrible what you're going through already, but it's going to make it easier for you in the long run because we couldn't have done it without them.
Call Hospice today. Hospice of Washington County, when time matters most.
I have wanted to be a teacher ever since first grade. Without the Mary and Ruth Smith Scholarship, I would not be successful as a growing adult.
Do you wish to make a difference in the lives of others? You can, and you don't have to be wealthy to impact future generations. Start your legacy at the Community Foundation and impact lives, just as Mary and Ruth Smith have done.
Thank you to the Community Foundation for believing in me and providing me the opportunity to become successful with my goals.
Albright Crumbacker Mal and Idtel are a full-service firm that provides elder care services including managing incoming bills, bill payment, depositing checks, balancing bank statements, and preparing, planning, and filing personal tax returns. Put your mind at ease and call us today.
Welcome to the Making Sense feature on Contemporary Retirement. This segment focuses on various financial issues affecting the retirement community. With me today, Sandra Miller, Senior Vice President, the Family Heritage Trust Company. Welcome to the show, Sandy.
Thanks for inviting me, Michael.
Sandy, you know, when you talk to people about investing and we talk about the retirement community, people are quite shocked to find out that there is a different attitude regarding a 65-year-old that has a 25-year life expectancy versus an 85-year-old who is obviously very risk averse.
Well, we can't be all things to all people when we're investing. We have to look at who they are, what their risk tolerance is, and what their lifespan is, if you will, and the lifespan of their investment portfolio. So with the 85-year-old, we have a much more conservative approach using stocks, but with the conservative approach in the stock market with some bonds and so forth, because they do need to continue to have growth to have the same lifestyle that they've always had. With the younger retiree, we have a little more of an aggressive approach, if you will, a little more heavily weighted toward the stock market, because that is the place that will keep pace with inflation.
And so people look and say, well, I put my money in CDs and therefore I'm guaranteed. And as we oftentimes say, you were guaranteed to lose because inflation last year was 3.5%. They made 1% or less on those CDs. They actually had a net loss in purchasing power.
Well, it's the buying power that's the key to any portfolio, because you have to be able to continue to buy goods and services as you are in retirement. And if last year you paid $1 for a loaf of bread and this year you paid $1.03, you got to get that 3 cents from someplace. So we have to put them in things that will at least keep pace with inflation, and that would be the stock market.
Now, of course, people look at the stock market and they think it's just pure risk. And the answer is if you speculate in the market, it can be pure risk. But if you invest in the global economy, you know, the global economy has a pretty consistent pattern over a period of time of continuing to expand. We always use an analogy when we talk to clients. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, which a lot of people think is significant, which not so many people think it actually is, but using that as an example, on October 1st, 1987 was 2,700. On November 1st, it was that same year, it was 2,000. So if you measured it by a 30-day window, you could paint a pretty gloomy picture that you had no business in the market. But the Dow Jones Industrial Average has, you know, flirted with 17,000 and more over the last couple of months, and as a result of which, you know, over that period of time, it hardly made any difference whether you paid 2,700 for the market or you paid 2,000.
That's correct, and it's important to look at being in the stock market from a long-term standpoint, because if you're in it for short term, you're going to experience just what you described. But in the long run, year over year over year, as we mentioned, the Dow keeps pace with inflation. Corporations that make up the Dow and the Standard & Poor's 500 are constantly growing, making more earnings, and analysts are continuing to recommend them. And so you've got an upward bias, if you will, over the long term.
And so as people look at that, it doesn't mean you put your entire portfolio in that. You have to address your tolerance for risk. But one of the models that you use at your company for investing is a widely diversified model, not trying to pick the sole winner, but really just taking advantage of the market's overall growth over a long period of time.
Yes, we recommend a fully diverse portfolio, and that means not just U.S. domestic U.S. companies, large cap, mid cap, small cap, ultra small cap, stocks in that area, of course, but then we have to look globally because the global market is the expanding market. The U.S. market is like the grandfather, and the global market's the teenager. It's growing by leaps and bounds. A lot of U.S. companies are going offshore, and therefore they're creating marketplaces that are continuing to rise, and you've got to have all of that mix in a fully diverse portfolio in order to participate in the global market.
It's very interesting. When I talk to the average client in my office and you ask them, is the market up or down from 2008, just before the market had obviously a serious downturn, and one of the worst since 1929, and the average person tells me, well, everybody knows it's down. Is that true?
No, it's not. It's actually up. If you had $1 million invested in the stock market, just the U.S. stock market, right before the 2008 crash, but didn't get out, by today that $1 million is worth $3 million plus. So
that's from 2000 to 2014.
That's
but not from 2008 forward. But it would still be worth more than it was the $1 million that you had in 2008.
Well, even if you're looking at starting in 2007, you're still doubling your money over that period of time.
Sandy, as always, thanks for taking time to appear on our program.
My pleasure.
Thank you from Contemporary Retirement.
Remember a more carefree time? Leave your insurance worries to us, Wright Gardner. Call or visit our website to learn how we can make insurance simple and more affordable.
These days, it seems like everything's online, and filling out claim forms and receiving and paying bills online isn't always easiest. That's why we at Quality First Insurance encourage you to just give us a call. Let us help.
Hi there, I'm Paul Sweeney with Quality First Insurance, and it's still just this simple. Our offices are open every weekday where you'll be able to call and speak to real, live people.
No detail was missed. I'm so glad that I turned to Quality First Insurance.
I've recommended Quality First Insurance to my friends who've been just as satisfied.
If you're not happy with what you're paying for Medigap, or more importantly, not happy with your service, give us a try. We're locally owned, and we take the time to provide you with the best. We are Quality First Insurance, and our mission is to provide quality products to quality people. Pick up the phone and give us a call today at 800-745-1411.